Hey everyone, welcome to Prince of the Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my ranking of all of the Avatar The Last Airbender episodes. So you might remember back when I finished Amphibia, The Owl House, and The Ghost of Molly McGee, I did ranking videos for each of those when I finished each series respectively, of all of the episodes of those shows. I ranked the episodes based on my personal tastes, my preferences, based on what happens in the episode, character stuff in the episode, etc., etc. You get the gist. And I thought it might be fun to go back on some old shows that I either watched on my own time or prior to the channels and stuff, or just shows that I never ranked all the episodes to. And I thought the best choice to start this off with would be Avatar The Last Airbender, it being one of the biggest animated shows of all time. So this is just going to be Avatar. It's not going to be Legend of Korra. Keep that in mind. That can have its own list. But yeah, we're going to be going through the three books of Avatar The Last Airbender and ranking all of the episodes. They're sorted out down here on based on episode and season. So it's like the blue here is like season one. You'll see green titles; those are season two, etc., etc. And we have the ranking system here, sorted S through F as usual, just pretty standard. So yeah, we're gonna go through these. We're gonna rank them just based on my personal preference, based on how much I like them or don't like them, etc., etc. And I'll try to explain my thoughts, but also try to keep it as brief as I can, because otherwise we'll be here forever. So we start with the first two episodes, and excuse me if I lean in a little bit to see the titles. The titles are above each square, and so I have to have this zoomed out a bit just to be able to show them. So I might have to lean in to read what it says. So we have The Boy in the Iceberg and The Avatar Returns. This is the two-part series premiere. The Boy in the Iceberg introduces us to our main characters. We have Aang, Katara, and Sokka. And it gets the ball rolling, while The Avatar Returns basically explains a lot more like what happened, who Aang really is, and really gets the ball rolling on Zuko and Iroh, and just the overall kind of chase that's going on during the course of the season. They work together, obviously it's a two-parter, but they are very different for me in terms of quality. The first episode hooked me in, but it didn't do enough to really, extremely invest me. There were aspects of it that I feel like, especially rewatching it years and years later, has made me realize it's like, it could have done things a little bit better, but they were just starting out. They were just getting their bearings still. I'm going to put this in B tier. The Avatar Returns, I think, is better. It feels like it started to get things down a little more, which is ironic because it's only episode 2, and these were probably made together. But the addition of lore and stuff, and Aang's his more consistent morality and stuff showing really started to work in its favor. I'm still gonna put it in B, but it's definitely above Boy in the Iceberg. So next, we have, oh my god, the Southern Air Temple. I really apologize for that. It's so little. And again, if I zoom in any, the top borders of these completely disappear. So the Southern Air Temple, really starts to have this show get real. It's the first example of many with this series where it gets really fucking dark really quickly. And actually, catches you off guard with it. The first episode of a show, or if it's a two-parter like this, are meant to hook you in, and to a degree they do, but I feel the Southern Air Temple actually is a better hook for the series. And I would suggest if the first two episodes don't quite get you there, definitely wait until at least episode 3 with this series. it hooks you in just a lot better of a way. It's an A tier for me. After that, we have the Warriors of Kyoshi. We meet the Kyoshi warriors, such as Suki. There's a lot of good comedy in this, with Aang riding the Unagi, with the overly excited fanboy, and stuff like that. I really enjoyed this episode as well for tackling Sokka's early series sexism and showcasing just how backwards that kind of ideology is. And it really just allowed the characters to shine. It showed some of Sokka's worst moments, but also some of his best growth early on in the series. I'm going to put this in A tier above the Southern Air Temple, just personal preference. I really enjoy this episode, on rewatches especially. Then we have the King of Omashu, with King Boomy and everything. Boomy is obviously a very popular character. He's super enjoyable. He's funny. He's ridiculous, but he's also surprisingly wise. And this episode had a lot of goofiness, but it also had a lot of preparation for Aang to have to really come to understand his place in the world as the Avatar. And I would put this in A tier as well. I'll put this under the Southern Air Temple, though. After that, oh my goodness. It says like incarcerate or something. This is the episode where we have, oh my god, what's his name? Haru. We have Haru the Earthbender, who is secretly practicing earthbending because his village has been taken over by the Fire Nation, and any earthbenders are taken to a prison ship. Katara fakes it in order to be taken there as well to help free them, and though it takes some convincing, they do end up freeing themselves from their oppressive masters, and thanks to Katara finding hope again to be themselves and to embrace their natural abilities. I don't think incarcerated is correct, but that's like all I can read from it. Either way, this episode was good. I just feel like it could have been better. And I'm going to put it at the top of B tier. It has a lot of good ideology in it, a lot of good themes. I just feel like it needed more time to really let those like themes and ideas settle and breathe a bit. I feel like this would have been better as part of a two-parter. You know what I mean? After that, we have Avatar Roku. Yeah. Just keep being ready for me to keep doing that. Because here, I'll show you what happens when I like zoom in. Like, let's go to 80. Just one step above, you can't see what it says. And yeah, I guess I can just bring it up here. But still, it's so tiny, even at 80. Hold on, let me try something. Okay, that's a little better. I'm gonna... One more. Let's try, like, base 100. I'm gonna have to be zooming or scrolling up and down a bit for this, but I think this works. Anyway, Avatar Roku. This episode, like, introduces, like, Roku and brings in the Avatar cycle and stuff like that. The Fire Temple. It's okay. It's a C tier. It's not that interesting. Especially, let's be honest, because it's about Roku. And after that, we have the Spirit World. These are kind of like a two-parter, with the Spirit World tackling the spirit stuff, the high base spirit, as we see here, who's just a giant panda spirit that's been corrupted. This one's definitely a lot better than the first one, than Avatar Roku. It touches on some more interesting topics and really develops the things from the Avatar Roku episode better. I'll put this in B tier, and I'll put it above the Avatar Returns. Yeah. So after that, we have the Waterbending Scroll. This is the one with the pirates, Zuko and Iroh, and, chasing down Katara. And it also is famous for having that ending bit where Katara reveals that she stole the scroll anyway, and that it's like it's okay because she stole it from pirates. And there's a lot of people who are like against that and say it's like it's out of character for her, or it just seems like morally wrong. And it's like this is a 14-year-old girl who has grown up with her mother having been dead for years, her father not being around. Like, her grandmother is the only adult figure she has in her life, and let's be honest, she's not the most parenting type, I guess you could say. And on top of that, Katara is is a lot more conniving than people think. Like, she's willing to do stuff like that and willing to make those kind of ideas based on ideas is the wrong word, I know, but based on like what other people do and everything. Katara is not as like sweet and innocent as some people like to believe she is. Either way, Waterbending Scroll's okay. It's a good episode, but it's not great. It's nothing special. I'll put it in C, top of C tier. So after that, we have Jet. Introduces Jet, Smeller B, Longshot, or Longbow, or whatever his name was, and the others of this resistance group. And this episode goes through the themes of like how a resistance group can start with good intent and good ideologies, but can get lost in their own like desire for revenge. It's a very good episode that really tackles that, ruined by the romance subplot. It's one of those cases where there's a subplot that's so completely unnecessary and so out of place with the rest of the episode that it completely breaks the immersion of it. The focus on all of the stuff with Jet and the desire to take out the Fire Nation, and that includes even innocent civilians, is an amazing plot. The romantic subplot with Katara, completely needless. And it again, in my eyes, it hurts the episode. And some people I feel like would say like, oh, but that's to show that Katara is very trusting in people, and that she's still learning herself and everything, and learning how to handle this kind of stuff. She got swept away by his charisma, his charm, and she has to learn to see through that in order to, be able to fight for what's right and all. And it's like, or other excuses or whatnot, but that's not a valid argument for me. It's just like, because it still feels entirely out of place. It still feels off compared to the rest of the episode. It just felt like, it feels like one of those moments where the writers are like, oh, we have to put that in here because it's a kid's show, and you have to have something like that in there. Jet is going to be the bottom of C tier for me right now. I'm keeping it there. It's the weakest episode so far, in my opinion, just because of that. After that, we have The Great Divide, what is considered by many to be one of the worst episodes of the show, if not the worst episode. And I think people are like huge over-exaggerators with that. There's a lot of episodes of this show that are definitely worse than it. It's not amazing, it's not great, but I would still put it in C tier, and I'd still put it above Jet. In fact, honestly, personally, I'd put it above Avatar Roku. I think it's fun. I think it's cute. I like the idea behind it, the message. It's not perfectly executed, but it's not as bad as everyone says. It's really not. Following that, we have The Storm. And a lot of people say The Storm is like one of the best episodes of the show and the best of season 1. Honestly, I find it hard to argue with that. The Storm's S tier. It's that good. The storytelling, the visuals, the intensity of it all, as well as like it's the episode where the story of this series really gets going, where it really hammers in the themes, the ideas, Aang's duty as the Avatar. and it's really just not just important to the overall narrative, but important to the characters and important to where their arcs go in the future. So following that, we have the Blue Spirit. And the Blue Spirit is an episode that I really, like on my first viewing, really enjoyed. Especially with the focus on how Zuko and Aang have a lot more similarities than they realize, and it really sets forward the possibility of them working together in the future. On rewatches, especially after years of rewatching this series and stuff, after thought about it a lot more, this is not a good episode. Like, there's some cool action and stuff in it, and that's about the only positive I can say about it. Because my issue with it is that it's so heavy-handed. It's basically slapping you in the face and telling you Zuko's going to be a good guy. Zuko's going to be a good guy. He's going to change sides. He's going to team up with Aang. He's going to be a good guy. It's so in your face that it's fucking annoying. It's like it's not subtle. And I feel like that kind of thing is better when it's subtle. It's honestly the weakest aspect of what is one of the best redemption arcs, period, in anything. This is the weakest part of that redemption arc because it's slapping you in the face, telling you it's going to happen instead of letting the series abide by show, don't tell. It's telling you so, like, heavy. The only thing it's not doing is saying directly, straight out, he's going to join Aang's side. The only thing it's not doing is saying those exact words. But it practically is. With the entire conversation at the end, with, like, Aang going, like, oh, maybe if things were different, we could be friends. It's like, oh my god, it's so heavy-handed. It's so heavy-handed. It has cool action sequences. That's the only positive, and the only reason it's not lower. It's way too heavy-handed for my liking. After that, we have The Fortune Teller. This is another episode that a lot of people don't like. And by the way, I'm not necessarily putting it in A. I'm just like, that's just a placeholder so I could read the title. As you notice, I've been moving them around after initially putting them on. The Fortune Teller is another episode a lot of people don't like. I think it's one of the funniest episodes of the show. It's fucking hilarious because they're poking fun at people who just blindly listen to others even without proof. Basically, this cult-like mentality. They're also poking fun at fortune telling and that kind of thing in general. And there's just so much good humor with it. There's so much good humor. Like, the one line I'm constantly thinking of from this is like, oh, this happened, or I'm trying to think of exactly how it goes. Oh, it's like, can your science prove why this and this happens? And Sokka's like, yes, it can! And he's so exasperated by it. It's so fucking funny. You also have the little girl, Mang, who has a huge crush on Aang. I remember her name because they rhyme, by the way. She has this huge crush on Aang, and she calls, like, Katara a floozy, which blew me away the first time I ever watched this. Hearing the word floozy used in a cartoon, it's like, I always thought that was a bad word. And I watched this pretty much when it came out. Maybe not exactly like in 2005, but pretty shortly after. So I was like a teenager. And it's like, I've always heard the word floozy. I've always been told that was a bad word at that point. And so it's like hearing them say that in a cartoon shook the fuck out of me. But it's like, this episode is just so funny. It's so goddamn funny. I really love it so much just because of how funny it is. It's a B tier for me. Like, it's not the best written episode or anything, but I would put it above The Boy in the Iceberg. I think it's that good because it's that funny. And I know a lot of people might disagree. I don't care. This is my list. Make your own list if you want to talk about that so bad. So, next episode we have is Bato of the Water Tribe. This episode is the first episode that irritated me. Like, actively irritated me, both growing up and currently. Because of Aang. Because Aang hides the scroll, hides the information of their father, and it's not that it's out of character, because he's a 12-year-old kid who, yeah, is going to be a bit selfish and everything. But he also knows how much this means to them, and it's always felt like I understand what they were going for. It just felt a little bit mean-spirited to me, to the point where I don't like that. Also, this is the episode, I believe as well, where is this the episode with June? I think this is the episode with June. Yeah, because it's because Katara and Sokka are going to leave Aang at one point because of what he did, and that's when like June comes in, and like Zuko and Iroh are there and everything. I like June, but Iroh does something really kind of fucked up in this episode. And a lot of people try to ignore it or act like it's not that bad, or some people like try to like pretend it almost didn't happen, and it's like how he gets kind of creepy with June. It's one of his lower moments, and you have to understand that Iroh was not always like a good person either. So it's not that I mean, remember, this guy was, a very dedicated general to the Fire Army, the Fire Nation Army. So he was not always a good guy, you have to realize. And this is one of those cases where even in the story of the main series, it shows. Battle of the Water Tribe has some good moments in it, and some good stuff like tackling Katara and Sokka's feelings for what happened with their dad leaving and everything. Sokka learning how to steer ships and everything. There's some good stuff in it, but it's more negative, I think. The negatives outweigh the positives for me. It's a D tier. It's not like E or F. It's not like terrible, but it has way too many issues, and on rewatches it just bothers me. It annoys me. So going from there, the next episode we have is The Departer. Or Deserter, rather. Again, it's hard to read these sometimes. The Deserter. So this is with Zhang Zhang, Aang's first firebending teacher. Unfortunately, Aang gets too invested in it in the wrong way, ends up hurting Katara, and even though she's able to heal herself, it leaves some emotional scars between the two early on that is really hard for Aang to deal with. And I think that this is a very big, important episode because of that. It scares Aang away from firebending originally, and makes him really concerned about going after that, and studying that to become a full-fledged avatar for most of the series. So I think it's really a strong episode in that regard. Plus it sets up some stuff for later on that really gets really exciting and interesting. I would put The Deserter at the bottom of A tier currently. So the next one we have is the Northern Air Temple. This is a really interesting episode because it touches on culture a lot, and specifically about how this group of people come to live in the Northern Air Temple and start changing things around and messing with the cultural landmarks and stuff. And Aang has to kind of learn that there needs to be a balance between that, because these people do need a place to live and do need certain amenities for that. But they are, doing things wrong. And on top of that, the father, the mechanist, is also being forced to help the Fire Nation army. while his son, it starts with a T. I've been trying to think of his name this entire time. I know it starts with a T. Teo? I think it's Teo. Who, by the way, is our first um, handicapped character in the series prior to Toph's debut and everything. He's just so cool. I love Teo. I love him so much. He's such an underrated character. This episode touches on some really interesting things that I did really enjoy. And so because of that, I'm gonna put this above the King of Omashu and below the Southern Air Temple in A tier. Following that, we have the Waterbending Master. So we finally arrive at the Northern Water Tribe, and this is another one that, like the Warriors of Kyoshi, that touches on sexism, but this one's more about institutionalized sexism and how that can, you know, be very reductive for a society, and how Katara has to kind of prove to herself, and more importantly to Paku, how bad that is. My one issue with this episode is that it's resolved way too easily. With everything going on, it's resolved just because Paku sees the betrothal necklace, and it's like, that's kind of dumb. He would not like turn his entire mentality and ideology around because of that. That's kind of a dumb way to end it. But otherwise, it's a great episode that, like, once again touches on sexism and the fact that women are just as capable as men and stuff. And so I can't put it lower than A tier, but I'm going to put it at the bottom of A tier. Following that, we have the two-part finale. I'm just going to rank them together here of Season 1. The Siege of the North, Parts 1 and 2. These episodes touch on, like, UA and the koi fish. I can't remember their names. The yin and yang koi fish. We have Zuko capturing Aang, but kind of letting him go, and, you know, all of the stuff involved with Shao. It's a really interesting finale, but is definitely the weakest of the finales for this series. I think that part 1 touches more on, you know, the culture of the North and everything, and touches more on, like, the setups, while part 2 is more the action and the payoffs. Things get really intense, really crazy. I'm gonna put part 1 above The Boy and the Iceberg. Part 2, I'm going to put just below. In both of them in B tier. Again, the other finales of this series are better, and this two-parter, it's just okay. It's good. It's nothing special. So now we get into book 2. And yeah, I know we're already 30 minutes into this, but gotta keep going, right? So book 2 starts off with the Avatar state. This is one where Aang is learning about, like, the Avatar state and trying to learn how to control it. And this general guy, voiced by Daniel Day Kim, I believe, is trying to force him into it by any means necessary, including putting his friends like Katara in danger. And it works. And of course, he goes after the general. And basically, at the end, basically they just say, fuck you, and leave. Because he's a piece of shit. This kind of goes into, like, the Avatar state as a concept a lot, and touches as well on the idea of, like, of what it means to, like, force someone to try and achieve something rather than learning it naturally. It gets intense and kind of really fucked up, and it's even a little hard to watch by the end. I would put it at the top of B tier, though. I don't think it's good enough to go into A tier, but it's still good. It's like, I enjoy it. After that, we have The Cave of Two Lovers, the episode that people just know because of the song. The Secret Tunnel song is legendary, and for good reason. It's a really fun song. But this episode also like really starts to focus on and touch on Aang and Katara's relationship, as well as gives us some really interesting lore regarding Omashu. I think it's a really interesting episode that I feel is pretty underrated. I can't put it in A tier, but I'll put it at the top of B tier. I think it's super underrated and has a lot more good than bad. Following that, we have Return to Omashu. They come to Omashu. It's taken over by the Fire Nation. They have to rescue Boomy, and we get Mai, and I think Ty Lee actually appeared in one of the first two episodes when she was being recruited by Azula. But this is where we meet Mai, and the group all gets together, and there's the purple pentapox outbreak, and Mai's baby brother and everything. A lot of good fun stuff in this episode, as well as Boomy just expositing some really deep wisdom to Aang and getting a plan put together. I'll put this in A tier. As for specific placement, above the waterbending master and below the deserter. I think there's a lot of these episodes are just better than it, but it's still really good and gets some good setups. After that, we have the swamp. We meet the swamp benders. We learn about the entire like connection of the swamp and the earth, as well as get some illusions caused by the swamp of everyone seeing stuff from the past except Aang, who sees Toph setting up for the future. This episode is fucking great. Like, come on. How can you hate this episode? It's so good. It has so much fun. There's good comedy in it with the swamp benders. Some good action with the swamp benders. Like Hugh's um, um, Vine Vine Man form is pretty cool as an example. I like the lore that it goes into, and of course, setting up for the future with Toph is fantastic. This one I would put above the Deserter. In fact, I'll actually put it above the King of Omashu as well. It goes up there for me. It's just a really good episode. Following that, though, we have Avatar Day. This is another one of those episodes that people don't like, and I don't understand why. It's fun. It's hilarious, but it also touches on how kind of society has come to see the Avatar due to the Fire Nation's, bullshit, propaganda and whatnot. And the Sherlock Holmesing of stuff with Sokka and trying to figure out everything to deal with the Rhino Riders, and in the end, they choose Aang's punishment is to serve them and save their lives and all, and the fried bread becomes unfried bread. It's so funny. It's so fun. It's a really interesting episode as well that does touch on some notable topics. I'm gonna put it in B tier, just below the Fortune Teller. The comedy in it's not as good as the Fortune Teller for me, but it does have some good comedy, and again, the good moments from it really do shine enough to put it in B tier, for me at least. And then we have the Blind Bandit. The introduction of Toph. We get the Boulder, voiced by legendary pro wrestler Mick Foley, who is just amazing. I love that he's still like really into the role and still like does stuff at conventions with that even to this day. It's so good. Toph is amazing. I love the stuff it goes into with her family, and it shows how strong she is and how like self-made strong she is. It's so good. It's like the Blind Bandit is our first season 2 episode that reaches S tier for me. It's that good. It's that impressive. And Toph is just such an amazing character, such a fan favorite character, and I can't argue with that. Toph's one of the best, easily. So after that, let's just scroll back down so we have a more medium area. We have, oh my god, what does that say? Zuko alone. Oh. Well, what do you have to say about Zuko alone? It's the most popular episode of this series by far. The storytelling in it is immaculate. Like, Zuko alone um, is definitely S tier. The question is, do I think it's better or just a little bit lesser than The Storm? I actually think it's just under The Storm, personally. A lot of people would disagree with that, and again, most people probably say it's the best episode of the show. But I like The Storm because it does a lot of similar. These episodes do a lot of similar things in character growth and development. But The Storm also develops Aang in a way that I think is really satisfying, while Zuko alone is, well, Zuko alone. It's all about him. And the stuff in it is great. It's definitely still S tier. It deserves to be up there. But The Storm just does more for the series as a whole for me. Zuko alone is purely for Zuko's character arc, purely for his redemption arc, and that's great. But I feel The Storm just does more for the series as a whole. Personally. Following that, we have The Chase. Everybody's tired. They're getting chased by Azula and her groupies, and it leads to this big confrontation in the ruined town that leads to Iroh getting hurt. This episode is so fucking tense. It is probably one of the most tense episodes of the series. And it's just like, you feel the intense pulse pounding, just fear, I guess is the best way to put it, that our main characters are feeling at every point. They're just not able to relax, not able to calm down, because they're constantly being followed. They're not even able to get any rest because of it, and it causes irritation and irritability between them. It's so good. It's such a good episode. Like, this is... It's on the verge of S tier, but I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. I think, like... I think it's just on the edge, though. It's that good. It's really that good of an episode. So after that, we have Bitter Work. Aang is learning earthbending and having a shitty time with it. Sokka, meanwhile, makes a friend and gets trapped in a crack. This episode is good, and it shows how Aang has to learn to see things in a different way, to learn earthbending and everything. Sokka's little bit is funny, really cute as well, with the moose lion, the saber-toothed moose lion cub. It's a nice episode. It has some good stuff in it. Toph is great, even if she's not, like, the best teacher at first. She actually does grow as a teacher in the episode. You actually get to see how better at that she does become, because she does take Katara's advice to give positive reinforcement. Bitter Work is good. I wouldn't put it at the top, but or at the, like, in A tier. I'm gonna put it at the top of B tier. I think it's, like, just under A tier. I can't quite put it in there, personally. Again, I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but again, it's my list. Deal with it. The library, oh my god. Like, I've made, like, kind of the joke punny name Hector Elizondo, because Hector Elizondo is the voice actor, the actor who plays Wang Shitong. I always call him Hector Elizondo, though, because it's just fucking funny to me. But I fucking love this bird so goddamn much. And the thing is, he's kind of a dick. He's kind of an asshole, but I love him. When he returned in The Legend of Korra, I screamed. I'm not even kidding you. I remember that so vividly. I literally screamed. And I don't do that often, because I just love this so much. You also have the professor from Ba Sing Se University in it, who, well, his corpse returns in Legend of Korra. But, like, the planetarium in the library and everything, and Wang Shitong just in general, as well as his ideologies about knowledge and everything, are really interesting to think about, even though I do stand on the idea that he is wrong. that you really can't just search out knowledge for knowledge's sake. But either way, the library is an S tier. It's one of my favorite episodes easily. I love it so goddamn much. There's a lot I could say about that, but we don't have the time for that. After that, though, we have the desert. So, following the library sinking into the sand, Aang is in a very bad mood because of Appa being kidnapped by the Sandbenders. Sokka and Momo are getting high on cactus juice. There's the buzzard wasps. Basically, it's just a bad time for everyone, pretty much. Um, this episode obviously deals with Aang's grief in a very harsh, heavy way. And the way he kind of mistreats everyone, the way he kind of like looks down on everyone and gets really irritable is really hard to watch, but in a really good way and for good reasons. This is an A tier for me. I think I'm gonna put it above. I think I'm gonna put it above the Northern Air Temple and just below the Southern Air Temple. Again, the kind of subjects it tackles and the way it tackles them is really powerful. And you don't like seeing Aang in that kind of mood, but it also just makes sense. Like, Appa's his best friend, his spirit guide. It makes sense. So then we have the Serpent's Pass. Another super underrated episode, I feel. Like, this episode is really fun, really funny. There's some great moments with Toph and Suki, for example. Um, but I really like the tension of this episode and just how crazy it ends up getting. Plus, it's an episode that really starts Aang's healing after losing Appa and allows him to see hope in the world again. It's a really good episode. It's a really good episode. It's A tier for me. I'm gonna put it just below the swamp, I think. So following that, we have the drill. The action in this episode is fantastic. The action alone is just fantastic. Um, the battles in and around and outside the drill are great. Also, just trying to stop the drill from getting into Ba Sing Se and everything. Dealing with Azula and them. It's really good. But it's like bottom of A tier good. Because not really much else happens in it. I'm going to put it above the Waterbending Master and below Return to Omashu. I think that's where I'm going to put the drill. So following that, we have the City of Walls and Secrets. Oh my fucking god. Like, this episode is scary. It's one of the few episodes of this series, and I'll be getting to the other soon. But this episode is actually scary. Judy and everything. Oh my god. Also, you have like just the propaganda and everything of Ba Sing Se, and Clancy Brown is phenomenal. But Clancy Brown's always phenomenal, to be fair. This episode is definitely S tier for me, and I'm honestly putting it above even the Blind Bandit. It is that memorably like intense for me, and I love it. I love it so much. So after that, we have, oh god, the Tales of Ba Sing Se. I'm like, where did that go for a second there? So the Tales of Ba Sing Se is the episode that makes everybody cry for one tale, because this episode is a what's the word? Um oh my, I was gonna say montage, and it's like, no, that's fucking wrong. It's it's a series of shorts, basically. There's a word for it, I just can't think of it right now. But it's a series of shorts, each one focusing on a different character and what they're doing, like, in their free time in Ba Sing Se. We get to see Sokka joining a poetry club briefly, Zuko going on a date, Momo kind of making friends with some panthers. But the short that everybody thinks about is Iroh and his song Leaves on the Vine. That makes everybody fucking break down and cry every time. him paying tribute to his dead son who died in a battle at Ba Sing Se, and is the reason why Iroh has not only turned his back on the Fire Nation, but, you know, turned his life around, and why he cares so much about Zuko now. It's so emotional, and the other stories are good too. Um, I especially like Katara and Toph's story, where Katara, has to help encourage Toph that she is very pretty, that she's very worthy and everything after some idiot popular girls in Bossing say make fun of her. It's just a really great bonding moment between the two that like really like cements them like as sisters in a way. But God, that song, that song just everyone breaks down at that. So I have to put in an A tier just for that. It sounds weird, but again, I like the other shorts too. But that definitely brings it up to A tier, and I'll put it right above the drill. Like I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Anyway, so next up we have um, Appa's Lost Days. This episode is hard to watch if you like animals because it deals a lot with like circuses and everything and how animals are abused in circuses, but also it touches on just Appa like trying to find his way back to Aang while being, abused and traumatized and attacked and just, treated like shit. And it's like, it's really hard to watch. It's like, they basically took the heavy emotions of Iroh's story from the Tales of Ba Sing Se and just like made it a really fucked up and hard to watch animal story. It's like you just spent an episode crying over Iroh's part, and then you go to this and it's like, fuck, man, I just wiped my tears. um, the thing is, it's so intense and so hard to watch. I can't put it above a B because it's hard for me to watch, and I haven't watched it as much. I haven't rewatched it as much because of that. It does its job. It's kind of like Grave of the Fireflies for me, to where it's like, oh yeah, it does its job. It's horrifying. It's hard to watch, but it's like it's a little too hard to watch. They did almost too good of a job, where it's just like I don't like it as much as other episodes because of that. I'm gonna put it above the Cave of the Two Lovers. I can't put it higher than that just because of personal like emotions. um, Following that, we have Lake Laogai. I think the next two are the. Okay, no, not quite. Okay, we're just. It's going to take a lot to try to get that back in place. We're going to just cover all three of these at once: Lake Laogai, the Earth King, and the Guru. So Lake Laogai continues the like town of secrets stuff with a lot of the creepiness. We have Jet dying, which is like Jesus fuck. Zuko actually helping Team Avatar. A lot of crazy shit happens at Lake Laogai. It's just such an intense, powerful, and terrifying episode. And it's an A tier for me. It's an easy A tier for me, right under the chase. After that, we have the Earth King, where we get to finally meet the Earth King, and it turns out he's actually really reasonable. It's just Lao Fang or Clancy Brown's character, who's the asshole, kind of shadow puppet controlling everything, and we get to see that all come down when they prove to him that the dude has been lying to him the entire time, and it's satisfying what happens there. This is an A tier for me, but it's not like high A tier. I would put this above Return to Omashu. And after that, we have the Guru. This episode here is another one that irritates me. Because in this episode, like, everybody's separated. Um, because they're going off to do things after, saving the Earth King and all. And specifically, Aang's story with meeting the guru and having to train with him and everything irritates me. Actually, is it this episode or is it the next one where that happens? It might be the next one where that happens, actually. You know what I'm talking about, though, right? Where it's like the guru tells him he has to let go of all his earthly attachments. No, I think it's this episode, because I think it's the end of the episode where they go back. And that's when he lets go of everything, when he has to go back. Or when he lets go of the training, I should say. Because the entire thing is, Aang is trying to learn to, master the Avatar state, master his powers and everything. And the Guru is basically telling him, yeah, you have to let go of all your earthly attachments, and that includes, your friends and the people you care about. And it's basically this fucked up, just an entire fucked up ideology, and Aang is like, I can't do that. That's not something I can do. And he was right. Aang was entirely right that that's not something you should even strive to do. The idea behind it is like, yeah, it's like Aang's the Avatar, but that's like something that, kind of led to the war in the first place. Roku, like, breaking off his attachments to Sozin really caused that shit in the first place. Which we'll get to all of that, by the way. The other stuff in this episode, I'm fine with. The stuff with, like, Sokka reuniting with his dad. The stuff with Toph learning to metal bend, being the first person to ever do so. I like those parts. It's just the Guru stuff. The Guru's, like, not a mean-spirited or bad character in terms of that. But he's definitely in the wrong, and it irritates me as to the reasons and the ideas he's trying to impart into Aang. It just... I've never liked that. So I'll put this at A tier, but because of the Aang parts, I can only put it, I think, above the Earth King. I would put it higher if it weren't for that. If it weren't for that, like if the episode just focused on the Toph and the Sokka stuff, really, it would probably be top A tier, like up here, like maybe just between the Chase and like Cloud Guy. But because of that, it knocks it down quite a bit. In fact, I'm going to put it under the Earth King. Yeah. I think that's the right placement. Okay, so next up, we have Crossroads of Destiny. And this is the Season 2 finale. The Season 2 finale is just one episode instead of two. Crossroads of Destiny is a really good episode that, like, deals with everyone kind of coming to a head. Azula, Zuko, Iroh, Katara, and Aang. And just the big battle in the caves under Ba Sing Se and everything that it means, everything that comes to a head. And the Crossroads of Destiny actually is about Zuko and his choice at the end. It's a really intense finale that really gives a lot of great moments. It's definitely A tier. It's obviously A tier. As for placement, I think I'd put it right below the Swamp. Because it's like the Swamp is just better, other episodes are just better, but it definitely deserves to be up there. Like I said, it's better than the Season 1 finale, which is down here at the bottom of B tier. And now we get to Book 3, the final season of the series. And we start off with the Awakening, dealing with Aang awakening after, I think it was a couple weeks after the events of the Season 1 finale. You have his new hair, and you have, like, him having to deal with the idea that he's, like, thought to be dead, and he doesn't like that. Katara dealing with her father and all the issues with that. This is a solid B tier episode for me. It's not meant to be anything more special than that either. It's just as a way to, like, show that, oh, everything's kind of different now. I'm going to put this above Avatar Day. After that, though, we have the headband. Aang starts attending Fire Nation Colony School. under disguise. There's the just great dance sequence with him and Katara and the other kids in the cave. And this one deals with showing that, yeah, not everyone in the Fire Nation is bad. They're just, being propagandized against by the leaders. And that it's all about perspective. And you have to realize that people deserve to be people, especially kids. And they shouldn't be like forced into a belief system that tells them what to think. This is a good fun episode that like touches lightly on some really good topics. I'll put it at the top of B tier. I just don't think it reaches A tier for me. Then we have the Painted Lady. The Painted Lady, I know is... I feel more divisive because I have heard people stand up for it. I didn't like... I don't like the Blue Spirit because it's too on the nose, because it just... It just doesn't keep things even slightly subtle. The Painted Lady is like a million times worse with that. It's an attempt at an environmental message and everything, with the pollution and everything of the town on the water. It's so in your face and so heavy-handed that it's completely unenjoyable to watch. It is my least watched episode of this series and is just so unbearable. The Painted Lady design for Katara is great. It's a fun design. It's really cool. That's the only positive I can say about the episode. Everything else is terrible. It sucks. It's written poorly. It's too in your face. It's not even funny. Like, it doesn't even have that going for it. It's an F tier. It's our first F tier. Also, we haven't gotten an E tier at all, but it deserves to be that low. It's a bad episode. It's a terrible episode. Sokka's Master, on the other hand, is the Sokka episode we needed. Sokka has been, like, kind of let down for most of the series. He's more of a comic relief character or an idea guy. He hasn't really had the chance or the ability to fight. Not as much, at least. And definitely not to the same level as his friends. And this episode addresses that. It freaking actively says that we need to get him, like, in a better position. The way he learns, the way he grows, and his maturity by the end is fantastic. The Master himself is great. The themes and ideas of it are great. This is an A tier for me. Our first A tier of season 3, book 3 as well. I will put this above the King of Omashu. I can't really put it higher than that, but it definitely deserves to be there. So after that, we have The Beach. It's a beach episode. But it does touch on the fact that even, like, Zuko's father was originally just a kid. And, Or no, that's later on, actually. No, that's a different episode. I'm sorry. I was thinking of the wrong episode. This one, like, focuses more on, Zuko and Azula's group and them, like, torturing and fucking with the other kids on the island and everything. It's okay, and it does touch on some big things, especially with, like, Ty Lee and even to a degree Azula. Touches on some of their emotional beats. But otherwise, this is very C tier for me. I'll put it, like, top of C tier, but it's just like, okay. Sure. It's one of those episodes. Like, there's some good comedy in it, like Azula trying to laugh along to that other teenager and everything, but it's just there. It just exists. Then we have the Avatar and the Fire Lord. So I kind of was talking a bit about this earlier. This episode really showcases how wrong Roku was in the way he handled things. And how he kind of is the reason that the war happened in the first place, because he handled things terribly with Sozin. It also shows just, how Sozin went from a pretty chill, cool dude to what basically amounts to as a raging psychopath. But again, basically because of Roku to a big degree. Um, it shows also the connection between Zuko and Aang, kind of playing a bit off of the storm. It's a really good episode that really delves into a lot of like heavy topics involving the lore and the politics of this series. I would say this is A tier. As for placement, I think I would place the Avatar and the Fire Lord just above Crossroads of Destiny and below the Swamp. Oh, excuse me. I knew that was coming. Also, that's ooh, excuse me, the highest ranked book 3 episode so far for me. After that, we get to the Runaway. This is the episode where Toph and the others are kind of like pulling these scams in the town, and Katara is against it at first, but eventually ends up joining in. There's this entire emotional thing about all of that. And it leads to, I think it's also the debut episode of Sparky Sparky Boom Man, if I remember right, because he definitely comes in, and after everything goes wrong with the scamming at the end, he comes in to join in on all of that and to take them in, or kill them, or whatever. But yeah, The Runaway is a good episode, but I'd only put it in B tier. It's enjoyable, it's fun. Toph is really great in this episode. There's a lot of good lore stuff and a lot of good character moments. But I wouldn't put it above Bitter Work, honestly. I'd put it like right about there. Okay, so I'm just going to go up here right ahead of things because this is my favorite episode of the show. I'm not even going to hide it. I'm not even going to say anything elsewise. The Puppet Master is my favorite episode of the show. I love when a non-horror series goes into full-blown horror. And this episode is like full-blown horror. It takes inspiration from like horror films and whatnot for its tone, its style, its setups. A lot of crazy shit happening with the ghost stories. And then you meet Hama, who at first seems kind of nice, but kind of creepy. And it starts getting creepier and weirder. And the end, like, when you get to the climax of it all and the blood bending, it's like, it gives me chills. It is so fucking good. Like, there is not a bad thing I can say about this. There's not even a slightly negative nitpick I can say about this episode. It's the best episode of the show, in my opinion. But then you go from that, and I'm just going to, again, scroll down here for Nightmares and Daydreams. This episode is stupid. It's fucking dumb. A lot of people are amused by the dreams and everything, like Momo and Appa talking and having like a samurai battle and stuff. The Fire Lord calling Aang out on his pants being down or whatnot. I think it's just dumb. Like, yeah, the little sheep dudes, the little koala sheep dudes or whatever they are super cute. But that's the only positive I can say about it. It's not entertaining. It's not funny. To me, of course. I just think it's a dumb episode. It felt completely out of place tonally with where the series was at. And I just didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. It's really that simple. Okay, so next we have The Day of the Black Sun, parts 1 and 2. Not our first two-parter, not our last two-parter. Here, I'll put these at the top of B tier for the moment. Because these are definitely going up here. This invasion, the Black Sun invasion, the return of all of the different characters we've met along the journey. Just so many cool action moments, so many like really inventive action moments thanks to Sokka's creativity. It's like, it's so good. It's like it felt like a season finale, and it's only a mid-season finale. But it felt like a full season finale because of how fucking good it is. Both parts, too. Like, very actively, both parts are just as good as each other. I think I put part two above part one, but they're both top of A tier. In fact, I put them like at the very top of A tier, I think. They deserve to be there. They're that good. So going from there, we have the Western Air Temple. So this is the one where Zuko has fully betrayed his father. He's trying to join them. You know, hello, Zuko here. All of that. The fall of Sparky Sparky Boom Man, thanks to Sokka and Zuko, kind of. Mostly Sokka. Sokka finishes them off. Sokka actually gets a really big win there. Toph getting her feet burned and freaking her the fuck out naturally. Katara being a little, like, savage towards Zuko. Like, Jesus, girl. Like, what she says to him after they welcome him in and, like, they show him to his room. Like, the way she just goes off on him so aggressively, it's like, oh my god. But we find out, like, when that comes into play. But this is like an A tier for me. It's not like a super high A tier, but I'd put it above. I think I would put it above the Serpent's Pass, right about there. I think that's a good placement for it. So after that, we have the Firebending Masters. It wasn't the one I was thinking of just yet. We had one episode first. The Firebending Masters is an episode that deals with like an ancient Sun Warrior civilization, and with Aang and Zuko learning kind of the secrets of firebending, finding out lore about the last dragons and Iroh. It's really good. It's really good. It's definitely one of those episodes that really delves into some great lore and stuff. Also, there's some fun moments in it. I would put this, I think I'd put this like just above the Crossroads of Destiny. Now we get to the two-parter I was thinking we were already at. And, well, these are just going to be A tier. Let me just say that right now. So, we have the Boiling Rock Part 1. Let's just tackle that first. So, this two-parter deals with Sokka and Zuko and them going to the Boiling Rock prison to rescue Sokka's dad. A lot of great moments with this. A lot of really cool, intense moments. Seeing Suki, seeing the father, seeing Azula's friends betraying her in these two episodes. It's really good. And both of these episodes, this is another two-parter where they just kind of really go together so great. You can't really separate them. I think I'd put part 1 as the lower one again, though. And I think I'm going to put it just above the swamp. Actually, I think I put this above the Northern Air Temple as well. And then part 2 goes just above that. So next we have another episode that people really love. And that is the Southern Raiders. Katara's little field trip portion with Zuko, where she's trying to get revenge on the man who killed her mother. It's a very serious, very intense episode. It doesn't really have as much comedy as other episodes of this series have, and takes an insanely, serious, powerful turn. And it gets very dark and very frightening. And it does end in a good way. And I like the message that just because you choose not to take revenge doesn't mean you've forgiven them. Like she tells Aang, I will never forgive him. I will never forgive that man for killing my mother. But I also couldn't kill him. And Aang's entire ideology of just forgive and forget, basically, it's that's... Again, he's a 12-year-old kid, I get it, but no, Aang, no. This is a really good episode, though, obviously. I would put it just above The Chase. It's upper part here, but I think the Day of Black Sun two-parter is just like so damn good. It's so damn good. It's also the episode, obviously, where Katara comes around on Zuko, which is a big deal. Um, After that, we get possibly the greatest recap episode in history of anything, the Ember Island Players. That being said, compared to the rest of this series, it's a C tier. I know that might be like surprising to people. It's like one of the best recap episodes, but it's still just a C tier to me. Right above the beach, top of C tier, but still, it's funny, it's entertaining, it's interesting. It does touch on some character dynamics and whatnot, but it's still a recap episode, and it's not it's not funny and interesting enough to really like completely turn around from that. You know what I mean? I just think it's not as good as it could be. From there, we have the final episodes, Sozin's Comet, parts 1 through 4. So, part 1, we deal with, like, this is the episode where we find out that, the Fire Lord used to be just a regular kid, too, and he was propagandized as well. But we also see the island turtle in this episode, as well as Aang's struggles with kind of dealing with the fact that he's going to have to kill the Fire Lord. And that is, without, like, exaggeration or anything, my least favorite part of the entire series. The entire series. Aang's selfishness and desire to not kill Fire Lord Ozin because he's a pacifist is so fucking selfish and catastrophically bad. It's like, I've heard people like argue this with me so much, and it's just like their argument kind of boils down to he's sticking to his ideologies and stuff. But it's like even Yang Chen, even the previous airbending Avatar basically told him, grow up. It's like, again, I know he's 12. I know he's a dumb kid. But it's so fucking selfish to do that. Because you're literally, like, sacrificing human lives for your own sake. And I'll get into, like, how this really goes bad because of this. But his choosing to reject like what all of the other avatars are telling him, that he has to do whatever possible, that he has to put his own feelings aside in order to save the world, that comes first, that comes before his ideologies. And the fact that he's too selfish to like listen to them, and to, even though he's the one who called them for advice, the fact that he's too selfish, the fact that he still puts his ideologies, his desires above, the lives and safety of the world, is just really fucked up to me. And it's something I will not waver on. I've heard all the arguments defending him, and it's like I'm not wavering on that. It pisses me off. And honestly, this is just the weakest part of the finale, of this 4-part series finale. But that one aspect of it really drags it down for me to E tier. I'll put it there, but that part of it, like, it actively pisses me off. Because again, I know he's a 12-year-old kid, but that's not okay. It's like, I can maybe excuse some of the other dumb shit he's done, but that's just, no. And I'll get into it again, I'll get into it, but the fact that he ends up getting rewarded for that, and the fact that he gets a Deus Ex Machina that allows him to achieve his goal there, I fucking hate that. It pisses me off. But I'll get to that. So part 2 is the Old Masters or whatever. The subtitles for the episodes aren't shown here. It just Sozin's Comet part 2. I think it's called like the Old Masters, and this has Zuko reuniting with Uncle Iroh, which amazing moment, by the way. It has the other Old Masters like Boomy and Jong and Piandao returning. And it's a great setup for the battles in war that are about to start. This is an easy A tier for me. It has some of the most emotional, memorable moments. It's so good. I put it, I think, just under Lake Laogai. And then we have parts 3 and 4, which have all the battles, all the action, Aang versus Fire Lord Ozai. Did I say Ozin before, by the way? Fire Lord Ozai. I combined Ozai and Sozin. The battle with that, we have Zuko and Katara taking on Azula, who has just gone completely insane. By the way, I don't have sympathy for her. I know a lot of people do, and a lot of people try to see her perspective on things and with her mother and everything. I have no sympathy for her. She's an evil piece of shit. Even Iroh couldn't find sympathy for her, and that's fucking Iroh. Even Iroh said she's crazy and she needs to go down. But the battles, the action, the excitement, all of that. Dog is about to start barking, by the way, because the male person's here. Just like you know. All of that is just really good. It's some great moments, a great way to close things off. Oh, wow, she didn't bark. I'm surprised. Seeing Zuko and Aang's character arcs kind of come to a close. But the one thing I was talking about, the Deus Ex Machina, the ability to energy bend that he gets from the lion turtle. He's given a way to take out the Fire Lord. A Deus Ex Machina to take out the Fire Lord without having to abandon his ideology. It's fucking terrible. It's fucking terrible. It pisses me off. Because he's rewarded for being a selfish asshole. And again, I know he's 12. I understand that. I want to make that clear. But he's literally saying that his ideology is more important than the lives of people around the world. That he's willing to let people die if he doesn't have to kill the Fire Lord. Which is also hypocritical as fuck, by the way. It's really fucked up. And again, you'll never change my mind on that. I don't care if you dislike this video for that, but it's something that pisses me off. And while he's not while it's just the payoff of that in this episode, it really does piss me off, and I still can't put it higher than a D because of that. It just irritates the shit out of me. But part 3 of the finale, I'll put that in A tier. I don't think it's as good as part 2. I think part 2 is just really where the finale of the series peaked. But I'll put it right under that. And so there you have it. My ranking for all the episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I definitely plan to do one of these for The Legend of Korra as well in the future. But as you can see, these are my favorite episodes up here. My favorite 6 episodes, clearly. Top 6 for the S tier. Just kind of happened like that. And then my least favorite episode is just The Painted Lady. Which, yeah, it's that terrible. But so yeah, that's my rankings. I'd love to hear yours though. So tell me what is your favorite episode, what your least favorite episode is. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the separate episodes and all as well. But like I said, don't try to debate about the entire killing Ozai or not thing to me, because I've heard it all before, and it's it's not going to change my mind. So that being said, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on other episodes, and for example, if you like one of the other episodes that are down here, like Blue Spirit or whatnot, or Bato of the Water Tribe, let me know why. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Or if there's an episode up here that you really don't like for whatever reason, I'd love to know your thoughts. So thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry for it being so long. It's just there was a lot of episodes to get through. That being said, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.